Hey folks, welcome to the Win Again Clubroom. Super excited to have you on board today. As you can see, this space is phenomenal. It's a great way to network, to meet people, and to watch amazing presentations, including the one today that I've invited 3 fabulous people into. I'm going to bring them in now. And let me just do that one at a time here with DeShawn, and we've got Jazette, and we've got Randy. So come on board, folks. And what we'll be talking about today, and I'll get into your intros in a second, but what we'll be talking about today, hey Randy, come on in. Where'd he go? he's still pitching Starsona somewhere. There he is. All right, cool. So what we'll be talking about today is really how to make athlete-family relationships work and make them better and make them successful, because we've all seen and heard lots of instances where there are obviously some struggles and challenges that go with that. So I've brought in this fabulous panel to talk about really how to make things much stronger and more successful and better. And they're all going to have some fantastic perspectives and advice. But in terms of introductions, I'm not going to go into too much. I just want to say a couple of highlights because I think they're very impressive. DeShawn Snow has her own coaching practice. She's on television. She sells multi-trillion-dollar homes in the Atlanta area. Maybe they're even more than that. I don't know.
She looks frozen. She looks frozen to me, Mark.
She knows she's very unfrozen. We put on a heater and we defrosted her, so she's fine now.
Okay.
And she's a transformation coach, and she's fabulous. And say hi, DeShawn.
Hello.
Hey. And she's unfrozen again. Yay. And then we've got Jazette, and Jazette is we were having such a blast yesterday on the phone, but I won't talk about the private stuff we talked about. But anyway, but she's I mean, just so many accomplishments. But one of the things that she's doing now, well, 2 different things, is she's the president and CEO of Speak English 5 and sports communication group, but she's also really working with WIPS, which is Women Inside of Professional Sports, which are the women that are all involved with, whether it's the athletes, whether you're a parent, a son or daughter, a sibling, however you're associated with an athlete, she's the person to talk to about this. We're going to talk about that in a minute. I've got Randy Kessler, a dear friend of mine. I've known him for 12 minutes. No, I've known him for a while now, a few years. And not only is he the partner and basically co-big shot of KS Family Law, which I'm going to say it right, Kessler and Soleimani Family Law, but also the founder of Starsona, which is an incredible platform for athletes to go to make not only make money for themselves or their charities, but to really offer fans the ability to get a personalized message. And how cool would that be? So for example, Randy would have these 2 amazing women on his platform, and I could actually spend money and get them to say something nice about me, and they'd have to because I'm spending money. So anyway, thanks for all of you being on board. Jazette, say hi. I didn't ask you to say hi, so say hello down there. And then Randy.
Hello.
Awesome. So thanks for being here. So look, really the first thing I want to do is jump into, and then by the way, anybody can sort of kind of come in and chime in on these questions because they're all very important. But I know that both DeShawn and Jazette have had NBA players in their families one way or the other, whether it's as a husband or as a father or as a son. And I guess what I'd love to find out first is, were you either of you prepared for that whole thing, or did you think you were but not even close? DeShawn, I'll start with you.
Well, my ex-husband and I, we were together since freshman year in college. So obviously that was the goal. He was working so hard so that he could get into the NBA. So, but we didn't know, what that would entail once we were in it. I was fortunate enough, our first team was Seattle. So there were a lot of veteran players, Nate McMillan, Hersey Hawkins, Mary. So we had some great mentors for us and to kind of give us the lay of the land. But a lot of people don't have that. And I'm not sure if Jazette had that or not, but it is a lot that you don't know behind the scenes. Politics is a lot of stuff. And of course, if you've never been a part, or even just the lifestyle, you've never been a part of that, if that hadn't been your lifestyle before. So it really, though, it magnifies what's already in you.
Well, let me throw a quick follow-up question on that before you start. I'm curious. Is there pressure to sort of become sort of friends with the other spouses and so forth and girlfriends and wives and all, or is it something where you could still have your own separate friends and not necessarily have to or want to or whatever? What was that like?
There's never any pressure, but usually I've always been in great environments where people, I mean, it can be cliquish. Some teams are cliquish, but I've always been in great environments. We were on 3 different teams where everyone was very welcoming. I mean, it would behoove you to be in relationship with them because they've already been where you are just now entering, and you can learn a lot, so you put your stuff to the side and be willing to learn, it can be very beneficial.
That's great. And Jazette, how about you?
Yeah. Well, for me, my ex-husband and I grew up around the corner from each other, like literally, but we didn't connect until I want to say when I was 12 years old, just at basketball games, recreational games. And then later on, we got together when I was in high school as boyfriend and girlfriend. So, I known him for so many years, it's pretty, the story is kind of incredible when you think that we crossed paths and didn't know each other as kids. And so for that, no, I was not prepared for everything that came along with being involved with, and not just a pro athlete, but even a college athlete, like because college basketball to me is more dynamic in a way than pro, the fan base is even different. The passion is a little bit different because there's no money involved, so to speak. So even being prepared for that was a lot, and then he went to school in Virginia and I was in Delaware. So it was long distance the whole time, but we managed to make it work. But as far as my son is concerned, yes, I'm prepared for that because I was married to a pro. So of course I'm more prepared for my son's career in that regard. And as far as friendships, there are no women that can understand this lifestyle except women that are in the lifestyle. So they are vital to your sanity, just having support system in general. You have to have women that are involved in professional sports to have someone that can connect with you and relate to everything that you deal with.
That's great. So ping-ponging on that, Randy, when you're dealing with, I mean, look, a lot of the work you've done in the past is really, I mean, although it's on the tail end of some marriages that you do some of the divorces and so forth of athletes, but what are some of the things that you've heard from some of your clients in terms of sort of how they may have gone into it thinking one thing and then it wasn't necessarily that?
Well, first of all, I'm so glad to be on with Jazette and DeShawn, and really I could just listen to them all day because we've represented a lot of athletes, a lot of ball players, and a lot of spouses of ball players, and their perspective is night and day from the folks that meet people after they're already famous. They've lived a life, they know their story, they're the true love, they're the ones who were there with them when, and they know their heart, and that's the ones they always come back to. I don't care whether they get remarried to them or they just call them when they get depressed or when they finally lose their career or they lose their charm. I mean, these are the folks that are really in it for the long run, and they really understand the full-time relationship. And I see Corey's got some questions between wives and girlfriends, but I find the difference really to be the people that meet the folks after they're already famous. Some of them are really authentic, and there is real love, and you can find real love when you're already a big shot, but it's so much harder. You're always going to question, do they love me? Do they like me because I am so-and-so versus the person that they know cared about them before there was somebody? And that's, those divorces that I handle are a lot harder because those are, you knew they were authentic relationships. The other ones, you got to question, you're always suspicious. They're always the terms and the cliches, but it's hard. And I think it's really hard for two people. And I'll tell you real quickly, I represented Nick Gordon on a minor civil issue, and he was the one accused of killing Bobby Christina. But to be the extreme example, that crucible of being two people that no one else in the world knows what it's like to be those two people. And I'm not sure Jazette and DeShawn know what I'm talking about. To be, in that bubble where the whole world thinks your life is wonderful and you've got all the money and all the access in the world, it's not true. Nobody feels for them. Nobody feels bad for them. Nobody has sympathy for them because they got it all. Mm-hmm. and they don't. And that's what's got to be hard, being a real person and not being, oh, I don't have any worries because I got money and fame. And they got the same problems everybody else does. They just don't get the sympathy or the outreach from the lay people or the non-famous people. And I don't know how Jazette and DeShawn deal with it and get through it and become the people they are. But it's a lot harder, I think, than the average person has any idea.
Spot on. You're absolutely right.
That's why it's important to have those relationships with the people that, the support group, because your friends, and your family, they think, well, what do you got to complain? Because it's not beyond the money.
Mm-hmm.
But, to the outside, they don't get it. So it's important to have that support amongst one another. But to be vulnerable and transparent so that your counterpart or, your girlfriend can really get the truth of it. Because a lot of times people are not always vulnerable and transparent. It's surface. But then you do have some friendships that are very vulnerable and transparent. And those are the most enduring ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even sometimes family members can become jealous. And that's hard. That's a hard pill to swallow when you grew up with an aunt or a sibling and you realize later on, darn, they're actually jealous of my situation, and it hurts. It hurts, and I've been through that personally. And it's hard to overcome, and it can create issues with relationships that you never mend. After that, so it's better to have, in my opinion, WIPs, Women Inside Pro Sports, as your friends. Hopefully, they can become close friends, even though you meet them after your husband becomes a pro. But the bond and just in the chaos of it all, and the challenges, it just can flourish into something special. And
then we see each other as each other, not as so-and-so wife.
Exactly.
That's even better too, because now we have, we are our own identity, our own person.
And half the time we don't even know who we're married to, frankly. We don't know. We don't know whose husband is. We don't know. We don't care about any of that. We don't even know a lot of the times, so it's just special. It's a special bond.
Yeah.
Now, I think what a lot of people forget is that, I've changed a lot of diapers. You guys have changed diapers. It's not like, I think the perception is that people see something on TV or whatever, and they assume that everybody's got like an army of nannies to do the dirty work. And when you're a parent or sibling or whatever it is, it's still day to day the same. Every athlete that I've met, every spouse of athlete, it's still the same thing. You still wake up, you still get, you still go have breakfast. You'll still, it's still the same life. You may or may not have more resources than someone else, but you're still living the same existence. You still have the same thing. And I think the outside world, the average person out there doesn't necessarily know that and see that. They just see what they see on TV, I guess, right?
Well, you have that. You have the normal mundane things, but then on top of that, you have extended family, people that live nearby. Sometimes you have a single parent home because he's gone for 9 and 10 months. Then you have the friend that never goes home. You have the agent, the coach, the teammates, the nanny. You have all these people that are your extended family, and you're like, where did you come from? But that's what it becomes. Then you have the fans, you have the groupies. Let's not forget them. Then you have the media who think they know you better than you know yourself. So that's the athlete family, honestly, those are the things that we have to contend with, on top of the everyday challenges of being a wife and a mother.
Yeah, Mark, I sort of have that in a vicarious way. When I meet with somebody, they always want to come in with their agent or whoever found me for them. And those people want to protect the athlete from everybody else. They're going to protect them from the lawyer and the accountant. And I got to talk to the guy. I'll have these people come in and say, don't let him marry her, make him sign a prenup because she's just a gold digger. And I got to talk to the guy and say, how do you feel? And he might say, I don't care what anybody else says. I love her. I don't even want a prenup because I love her that much. That's what has to guide me, having those heart to heart and getting through the riffraff and the noise is hard. But the people like, again, like Jazette and DeShawn that were there with them and know what it's like, they're the only ones that can really keep them grounded. And hopefully, they still listen to the people that knew them back then. And some of them don't, and some of them get into trouble, and some of them come back, and some of them don't ever come back and don't ever get back on track. So, I don't envy the life of a professional athlete. And I know we got some in the audience watching, and it's a tough, nobody has sympathy unless you really have been there and lived it. And I've got 15 lawyers in my firm, and I tell every one of my lawyers, you would never want to be a professional athlete. Unless you're going to make the $100 million contract, because aside from the money, which you make in 3 years, and then you may never make it again, you peaked when you're 21 or 22. The rest of your life is going to be trying to figure out how do you fit in, how do you take what you had back then and parlay it, and it's tough, which does get me to Star Sun, and we'll talk about that later.
We sure will. But it's interesting because, and again, that's a lot of what I do, right? Is helping the athletes transition, and it's really interesting because non-athletes, they get towards retirement age at 70 or something, and it's amazing when you're a professional athlete and you may peak. When you say peak at 21, 22, I hope it's more like 27, 28. But still, the point is that when you're in your 30s and you're still a 32-year-old or 34-year-old, you still got all your everything, but suddenly the rest of the league is caught up with you and is passing you. It's tough. So, but with that said, I'm curious about something else you said, Randy. And I'm going to ask my both DeShawn and Jazette to talk about this. How do you, or how can you, or what kind of advice can you give an athlete or a spouse on how to control that riffraff, to control all these people that suddenly they want a piece of it? Hey, remember me? I'm your cousin from wherever. And is there an easy way to sort of manage the family, or what kind of advice can you give?
Well, one, you should always be on the same accord, because a lot of times it can cause problems within the marriage. If your mom is asking for stuff and his, so one, you want to make sure you're on the same accord, and don't be doing things behind the back. Don't be giving money here and your wife not knowing, or the wife don't be giving money and the husband not knowing. That's just, you don't need those unnecessary headaches, because really the marriage is the institution. That's the number one thing. So be on the same accord. And then, but you just have to be solid, because a lot of times, like I said, when you come into it, it just really magnifies who you already are. And if you don't know who you already are, then you're just going to be doing all these different things trying to find yourself. And so you have to have a solid foundation, I believe. And then you can navigate, because if you have that strong center in your center, and it starts from having it with yourself first, because you want to be the ultimate person for your partner. But, you have to do that for yourself. And then you have that strong unit, and then it won't be so easily shaken by the, because there is, and you will sway back and forth if you don't have that solid foundation and they're not on one accord.
That's great.
Great.
And Jazette?
Yep, I agree with what DeShawn said. I just want to piggyback and say there has to be a respect level, ironclad respect level, and there are two leaders. There are two leaders, not one. There are two, and each leader has to be respected and valued at the same level. Doesn't matter who's making more money, who has the fame. It does not matter. Two leaders, respected equally, valued equally, and then I think that's the way to maintain the foundation that DeShawn's speaking of, and that's one thing that I always tell people, that you have to be solid within yourself and have the same value systems, but there has to be a respect for both leaders equally in the relationship.
Now, you mentioned earlier, though, that there's a couple family members, or one that was jealous and that sort of thing, or envious, or whatever the right word is. Mm-hmm. How do you, do you have to go into a lot of this realizing that there might be some family members that just kind of slide away one way or the other, or is there a way to save them? Is there something what can you do or say to them that makes them feel better?
I never thought that was going to happen. Never. I didn't prepare for that. That was just something that I just never thought would happen. Mm-hmm. But as you grow older, and when you're in this world, for a number of years, the relationships fall away anyway. It's just that, and that's with life in general. And then you travel so much, and sometimes you're moving around so much that you don't even see the person. And if you have tension, then it makes it worse. So it's easier to kind of disconnect, and it's sad, but it's a fact, so, but I don't think that there's anything that you can prepare for, because it's not something you don't expect to have to separate from someone that you love dearly, for that's for me. So.
And sounds.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, DeShawn. No, DeShawn, you got the experience, not me.
I was going to say, well, family's a little bit different, but like friends, sometimes people are just in your life for a season. Sometimes if they fall off, they fall off, meaning if the relationship fall off, like, because we do travel, well, back then, you be traveling, you got a lot of stuff going on in your life, but if you have that key, like I had key friendships like from childhood. Like it doesn't matter if I hadn't talked to them in months or years. I mean, we can pick up right where we started or where we left off. But then if you have those others that need to be managed and all that stuff and can't understand it, I mean, you gotta, again, it goes back to focusing on your family and your marriage and your family first, and everything else, you know, if it's not, you don't need to be stressed out about other people's stuff. You're going to have enough to deal with within your household unit. So the people that God has for you in your life, you know, they're going to understand and they're going to respect. And if they don't, they don't. It's hurtful, yes, but you can't, you know, waste any sleep over it.
And quite frankly, you don't have time to do that. Right. You just don't have the time. There's so much going on. You don't have the time to have to nitpick and hold somebody's hand that's supposed to be an adult, you know, that you're connected, that, you know, should be on a bigger scale than material things, you know, so you really don't have the time to even have to sort through that.
The time or the mental capacity.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think you got to find those people that no matter when you call them, they're going to say, how are you doing? They're happy for you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're, and especially when you're in the spotlight, there are people that are going to always want something, always ask for something, and they'll tear you down. I mean, you need those few people that, and you think, like Jazette said, you would think family would just always be happy for you. Your
Mm-hmm.
husband made it in the NBA, your son made it in football or NBA. They should always be happy for you. And you know, if they're happy for you, great. If they're not, you don't need them. There are too many people that want something from you. And it's just, you know,
right.
And it doesn't have to be athletes. It's just in life. You know, if people have made it or successful, there are people that are happy and there are people that are jealous. And
right.
You know, stick with the people that are happy for you.
And it's important to, like I said, have that strong core, because a lot of times, you know, you can have like survivor's remorse, I guess, you know, you feel like, okay, you made it out. And so now you feel like obligated to help everybody else. But again, if you're going back to that, you know, your family unit, that's what you have to worry about, you know, and don't try to have the survivor's remorse and try to appease all these things to meet your needs at the risk of the family.
Yep.
That's great. So I'm going to start this question with Randy and then shift. So Randy, I know that you've advised, I don't even know how many athletes and their spouses and so forth on, you know, they're in love, and then you say, look, I'm so happy you're both in love, but you really need to cover your butts, both of you, sort of legally going forward, especially if you start making a significant amount of money in a contract and so forth. How do you even, I mean, is there a way to start that conversation, or how does that work?
So it's a great question. First of all, I'm a big believer in, it's all about how you say something, not what you say. You know, you can say anything in the right way. And you look at, I don't want to get into politics, but there's some people in politics that could, I don't care what they're saying, I'd love to listen to them because they just speak well and they can sell an idea. And that's why some of them are successful. You know, it's how you say things. So for instance, I'll give you an easy example. When, you know, the guy comes to me or his agent comes to me and says, hey, he's about to have a big contract, he needs to get a prenup. How does he talk to her about a prenup? Well, you know, you could do one of two ways. You could say, I want to protect myself, honey, and you're not getting my money, which doesn't fly. Or you could say, you know, I've talked to everybody around me and they want me to protect myself. Or what I prefer they say is, look, who knows what the future brings, but I want to make sure that you're protected. It's not just about me. This document, when I tell them to talk about a prenup with her, is going to make sure that she's got some bare minimum, you know, resources if things don't work out. I mean, that's a great sales pitch, right? And it's true. You know, we could break up and I could spend all the money in the world on my lawyer and you could spend the money, but I want to make sure that we have it figured out. So we're not worried. I'm not worried that you love me for my money, or you're not worried that I'm going to leave you for someone else and not give you any money. You will be guaranteed X and I'll be guaranteed Y. So the money is off the table. You know, it's all about, think about the recipient on the other end of the conversation when you're talking. You got to express yourself, but measure twice and cut once. So communication is vital. And God knows athletes have so many people in their ears telling them what to say, and they'll say some stupid stuff and they'll react and they'll mimic and they'll hear, and you got to let it go in one ear, out the other ear, and have that quiet time. I don't know how you do it. You know, I don't know how Jazette and DeShawn did it because it's a hard thing to do, but I'm sure they had to pick their times and pick their places and get the attention when it's one-on-one and figure out what they're going to say. And I'm sure they had long, serious thoughts about what they're going to say about stuff that's important to them, because they know, you know, just reacting and yelling and arguing never works for anybody, famous or not.
Well, I failed at that. No,
I don't know. Well, we're all human,
I was
right?
a shooter, so I yelled and I
now.
argued. I did all that stuff. Then I calmed down, came to my senses, and talked. That, and then we were young too, so you got to factor that I wasn't as wise as I am so wise now, back then. So but I did my best. I mean, I gave it my all. I did my best. That's all I can say. I gave it my 100% all every step of the way.
Well, Mark, I want to jump in. That's because that's the problem. That's the nice thing. It's human nature. Jazette didn't grow up with a personal therapist and a person next to her and a lawyer and an accountant, and neither did. I mean, I don't know how she grew up, but the point is, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you learn by trial and error. You talk to me about when someone's already decided they need a counselor, a lawyer, or some advice, and they're willing to take advice. That's what I can give as advice. But, human beings don't start off with people in their ear telling them, here's what you should think about. Here's what I've seen in my experience. We live and we learn. And so, if
and
you're lucky.
I came from a small town. There were only a couple of pros that came out of the town. And so I didn't have anybody to talk to about what I was going through and dealing with, not in my family or, down the block, if you will. So, you just did the best that you can, at the time, and then navigated through it the best way that you could navigate. And then, like I said, build those relationships with women inside pro sports to help you. So
now, without 1 second, DeShawn, and we'll jump to you. But I don't want to get too nosy, but this is a nosy question, I guess. But did anybody ever advise you to do the prenup thing, or did you guys do that, or did you do it some other point, or was it like just never mind and we'll figure it out? How'd that go?
No, I didn't do a prenup, and nobody advised me to do a prenup.
Yeah, I think she and I we were together before they, had
exactly. So
with them in the beginning. But what I will say is, so we were together from the very beginning before all of that. One thing what I help my clients with and my girlfriends too is on the other end, because of course you go into it not thinking that anything will ever go wrong or that it will end. But when it does, like I was so emotional for my divorce process or thing, and I didn't make smart choices at the end. So I don't know that I wouldn't want it. I mean, when you're with someone from the beginning, you wouldn't prenup. But to Randy's point, I made bad choices due to my emotions. My emotions were in the driver's seat, and I didn't make the best decisions for myself on the back end. So I can see how that could come into play.
Now, is that something that you're now advising the people you talk to say, look, yeah, scream and yell and smack the pillow or whatever you got to do, but then put that aside and then focus on what the smart choices are, kind of thing? I mean,
I agree with what John said.
The people you paying. I have lawyers and stuff telling me, but I just I wasn't listening.
And I agree with you. I did the same thing. Emotional, didn't do probably make the best decisions. But I would advise to have the conversation, if not for yourself, for your children, so that your children are okay, regardless of whatever happens. And honestly, your spouse should want that. He should want that for you and the children, so there shouldn't be too much, pushback, if you will.
And by the way, Mark, DeShawn and Jazette are not the outliers. They're not the unique examples. I mean, I wouldn't have a job if people acted rationally. If nobody, I mean, that's exactly how every human being acts. Someone's getting rejected, somebody's cheating, somebody's doing this, and you're angry and you're frustrated. It's not a business transaction. It's an emotional relationship, situation. And I'm trying to make it into a business transaction to think about 10 years from the future. But if everybody came to it and said, yep, it's a business decision. We both decided today at the exact same moment in time that we want a divorce, then it'd be simple, but it's not. And that's the hard part, is how do you gain that maturity? And for athletes, for spouses of athletes, to not just in a relationship, but also that amount of money that you've got to figure out how that's going to last for the rest of your life, that amount of fame, that amount of, connections. And, how do you figure out your whole life that Mark, you and me and everyone else does over a 30, 40, 50 year career in a quick, time pressure, a pressure cooker like that? It's just, I don't know how you get through it. And I would have been shocked if DeShawn or Jazette said, oh yeah, we were very calculated and rational and, had no emotional reaction to it.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot a second, Randy, because my a friend of mine has had experience with this, we'll say, and that's me. And I've noticed that sometimes it can be.
My friend has a rash, doctor. It's not me.
I didn't want to say anything like that. But anyway, but I might have, for example, somebody like you representing me, but then my spouse might have somebody who I almost feel is like they're keenly aware that every extra minute they spend on the case, it's ka-ching to them. And I sometimes feel,
especially with athletes, especially I'm going to make this it's going to get me famous. So I'm going to be in the press about it.
but not just get you famous and be in the press, but also there's a tendency to stretch things along. Like, maybe it's going to be, hey, Sue, did you know that he's got a boat and whatever it is, we need to go after the boat, or it might be, hey, Mark, blah, blah, blah. And I sometimes feel that sometimes the lawyers may feed into that. And they're not necessarily there to make it a business. They're there to make it more emotional.
So you go with reputation. Lawyers have a good reputation because we make it on the quantity. I don't think of one case. I mean, I've got 5 cases I can tell you right now that are each arguing over $50 million. So any of those cases, but thank goodness, because if one of them settles tomorrow, I'm still working on the next one. I'm not pushed to make sure. So I have a good reputation. I'll have business coming, so I don't need to worry about that. But you're right. There's the old joke that the lawyer says, so ma'am, your fee is going to be $3,600 down and $999 a month for 36 months. And the client says, well, that sounds like a car payment. And the lawyer says, yeah, that's my payment. You're going to be paying the payment on my Porsche, But sometimes it is. The hard thing to figure out is, and I get this when I walk into court and the judge says, Mr. Kessler, why didn't you make your client settle? And I can't say because my client's a stubborn piece of what. So sometimes I'm pushing for too much money because my client has rejected my advice. But I think the way you know whether the lawyer is doing it because the client wants or because the lawyer wants is you go with reputation. Sooner or later, lawyers that have bad reputations get known and people know about them in the community, and shop around. So if you're in that position, ask and maybe say to your spouse, could you get a second opinion? Talk to 2 or 3 lawyers just to see how you feel, because a lot of people hire the first person they meet because they're scared and they say to me, oh, you know how to do divorce? You're my man. And I think, well, did you do any research? Have you talked to anybody else? No. I just don't want to tell the story to anybody else. I'm happy. So it is hard. And there are lawyers that need the money or that will push it a little bit harder than they should, but they end up with egg on their face a lot of times. And, sooner or later, the cream rises, in my opinion.
Yep. And it's not just in that scenario. Even agents do the same thing with contracts. They try to push in direction. So that's all around on the player.
Do you think that the player figures that out fairly quickly, or does it take some time or maybe some tough lessons till they get to that, or what do you think?
Both, probably.
Yeah, I think it depends on the individual.
Hey, it goes both ways too. I mean, there are times I've fired players. I mean, very few lawyers will fire somebody famous, because they think there's so much benefit to being able to say. But I think a lawyer's you got to say no sometimes. And there's some clients that will say, and look, in their defense, they're used to people saying yes. They're used to people telling them what they want to hear because they want them as clients. They will tell them, you can afford that big house, or you can afford to do this, or you can afford 3 cars, or the agent or the advisor that says, don't buy 3 cars. They'll say, you know what, I'll get another advisor that will find a way for me to afford those. So it's a two-way street. I mean, we as a profession, and it's called a profession, not just a job. We have a duty to be professional and tell them what they need to hear, whether it means they fire us or not. And
right.
But I think eventually you go with reputation and ask your peers, ask the people you respect, who do you really respect in this business, whether it's an accountant, an agent, and that's who's going to be with you in the long run when you're having a hard time and you've been out of the league and you need to find a job overseas or whatever it is. It's hard. It's growing up. Look, we all get slapped with that. I never thought this day was going to come. I'm too young to be retired. You better surround yourself with good people. And I go back to Jazette and DeShawn. Usually the good people are the people that knew you before you were famous, that stuck with you when you didn't have money and fame, and those are the people you should probably seek out first. And I would be shocked if, Jazette and DeShawn's exes, and I'm not trying to get too personal, no matter how bad the breakup must have been, their exes either, I would bet, have either reached out to them or thought about, what I really should do is find out what she thinks about this. And I know they want to know, because you all remember the struggle, and they know you all were there for the struggle. And they may not ever reach out because of pride, but that's who you should reach out to, the people that knew you before you had ulterior motives to want to be with them.
Yeah. It's
I agree.
I agree too. Sorry, Jazette. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say it's important to I think, having somebody on the team or someone outside, to get referrals. I've always dealt with them referrals. Because somebody that already went through it. Because a lot of times especially these younger guys, no one really wants to raise their hand to say, oh, I don't really know what to do, So then they get into these situations, not asking the right questions because they don't want to make it seem like they don't know anything. And then that's how they get into trouble and stuff. So always seek advice from someone, one of your peers, or that's, I think referrals are the best way to go, especially because the community is small. I mean, especially like you were saying, the agents and the lawyers and stuff like that. And word will get around. So just ask, or you can ask the Players Association. The Players Association.
That's a good one.
We have good referrals.
It's an amazing association, right? To be part of a union that takes care of players that are no longer playing. I mean, if you stop working for Coca-Cola, you're out of the union. I mean, they take care of former players, which is sort of unique for a union.
Well, they should. All the money they make off the players, sure, they can afford it. They owe them, and then when you think about the short period of time their career is, and then they have the rest of their life to figure it out. They should be there with them every step of the way. And as far as identifying counsel, I learned, became a life coach so that I could use my personal experience as well as be knowledgeable about giving advice. I think that counsel should come from people that have experience in it on a deeper level, not just some random whatever attorney or agent or whatever that has no connection, on a deeper level. I think that makes all the difference in the advice that the athlete will receive.
Oh, that's great. So look, I think we're at a point now where I want to have a chance for people to get to know you guys a little bit better individually. So we'll jump back to the tables in a second. But before we do that, do me a favor, one at a time, and I'm going to ask you to start, DeShawn. Tell me just briefly a little bit about how people can reach out to you. Who are some of the people that you think you can really, truly work with and help out? And then we'll pass that around. But talk about that a bit.
Well, people can reach out to me. I'm on all my social media platforms. It's DeShawn Snow or DeShawn Snow Coaching, and my website is DeShawn Snow Coaching. I became a life coach because I wanted to, like, after my divorce, I was just like broken and stuck. So I just wanted to like disrupt the patterns people go through. And so a lot of my clients are athletes, and girlfriends and things like that. But I just always want to, I want to save people from making the same mistakes I made. So it's important. That's
awesome. That's great. Jazette?
So my website is sc5whips.com, WIPS, Women Inside Professional Sports, sc5whips.com. On Instagram, I'm Speak English 5. And for me, what we do essentially is we advocate for women inside professional sports. We share what goes on inside professional sports from the women's perspective, because oftentimes, obviously, the men are highlighted and we don't get the truth. Society doesn't get the truth about what happens. So we provide platforms for that. And also from a coaching perspective, I have clients that are children that are becoming athletes. A lot of people come to me saying, how did you raise an athlete? How did you get your son to this point? And, he's so well-rounded and things like that. So I have younger athletes that are my clients.
Oh, you also have a book.
Yeah, I do.
Whips Unscripted. That's right. It's right here. And, yourself and your daughter wrote a lovely little note to me. It says, "Don't be stupid." No, it doesn't say that. But anyway, this is a great read so far. So everybody should make sure to grab a copy if they get the chance. And then on top of that, all right, Mr. Kessler, batting cleanup.
All right, so I'll try to be quick. So the way I can help, first of all, Randy Kessler, I'm easy to find, divorceprotect.com if you need me for family law related stuff. And I've done a lot. I've chaired the family law section of the American Bar. Translation means I'm connected across the country. So if you know someone who needs a family law attorney, or really any kind of attorney, criminal lawyer, anywhere in the country, use me as a filter. I don't get a referral fee. I'm not trying to send out business to someone in California because they pay me But I will try my best to find you the very best person in your community to help you, or to at least have a consultation. I also do something that, I like helping athletes, and I know they're afraid of coming to lawyers. I'm happy to discount, whatever it takes to have them get a little divorce 101. If I'm promoting my book only because if you say Mark Moyer sent me to you, I'll send you a copy free if you need it. It's a general overview of family law. One of these two versions, it's the same book, different covers. If you want it on Amazon, it's $9.99. I can't send it to you on Amazon, but I can send you a hard copy if you email me and say Mark said it. I'm happy not to charge you. The other thing I've done that marries my history of representing athletes and stars with my passion for making people happy is Starsona, which is an app that lets former athletes or current athletes or any kind of star that's got any kind of following, anyone who's got a following can be on Starsona. And DeShawn and Jazette are super examples of people that, the whole world doesn't know yet, but they have followings. And if you want them to do a video for you, or you want them to critique a poem that you wrote, or to react to something, or to tell you that jump shot needs to be a little bit, stronger, whatever it is, you want them to DM you, just go to Starsona, look them up, and there's a whole menu of options. And if you know someone who's a star or has got a following, they should be on it. It's a way to spread your brand. It's a way to touch your fans. It's a way for people like Corey, who's on it, to say, I know you were a Cowboys fan back in the day. Let me tell you what it was like from the inside scoop, being in that locker room with those guys. And you get a little bit of insider trading for a small fee that, the stars usually use to help their favorite charity or foundation. But, we don't want them to do it for free because they'd be overwhelmed. They'd be doing it all day long. But that way it's of value to you. It's of value to them. And then you can take whatever you get and share it on your social and spread the word about how great it was to see Corey do this little video for you, or DeShawn to give you some relationship advice that was personal to you that you don't mind sharing because it might help others. It's just a win-win-win-win-win. It's a cool thing that's much more fun to talk about than divorce work.
That sounds that way. So before we jump back, what do you guys think of this platform? What do you think of being able to present here and be in this room and so forth?
Can I just say one thing first?
Yeah, sure.
DeShawn and I, one of our friends put a message up on social media, so it's just making me want to say this. Oh. We want to obviously we want to keep our families together if possible, but the most important thing that I can't stress is be in a healthy situation. No matter what, just the health of the situation is the most important thing, not staying together, and I'm not going to go into anything more than that, but I just want to put that out there. Be in a healthy relationship, in a healthy situation. It's okay if you remove yourself if it is not. So yes.
I want to reaffirm that, because people say you're just pushing divorce, you're a divorcer. No, I hope I go out of business because there's no more divorce. But people say, I stayed in the marriage till my kids were old enough to understand. And when I finally filed for divorce, you know what my 16-year-old said? And I say, what? And they say, my 16-year-old said, what took you so long, Mom? What took you so long, Dad? So kids know.
They do.
It's not stay together at all costs.
Right.
Make it healthy, work it out, but, get some outside influence and listen to the people that love you. They'll tell you what you need to do.
Yep. Sorry about that, Mark. I just needed to put that out there.
No, that's great.
Okay.
Well, listen, thanks to all three of you for being on board. Just another sort of great example of how this platform and the Win Again Clubroom is really being able to offer such great expertise. I mean, today's advice was great. I mean, it really fantastic. All three of you, really wonderful, and look forward to having you on board again. But in the meantime now, feel free, for all of the rest of you that are watching, if you want to check out more information and the upcoming calendar events, make sure to go to the markmoyer.com and then Win Again Clubroom calendar of events. We've got all kinds of great people coming up. Corey Jackson in a couple weeks, Jed Collins a week after that. We've got David Meltzer coming back. A wide variety. Oh, and of course, Corey Proctor is going to be appearing September 15th. So make sure you all jump on board for that. So in the meantime, I'm going to stop the recording of this, and it'll be available for you afterwards if you'd like to watch it. And now we'll jump back to the tables. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.